Hello, welcome back to Noviland. It's another beautiful day in paradise. Today I wanted to share with you what I will call my money processes testimonial. Some of you have heard of the money processes offered by Kevin Trudeau, which are energetic processes that remove counter-intention. So when you're trying to make money, you don't have reversal or other things going on in your head, energies in your subconscious that end up giving you the opposite of results of what you're trying to create. So it's a good idea for a lot of people to get those. I highly recommend those. And if anyone is interested in knowing more, please let me know, write, comment, like, subscribe, all those good things. And I will get back to you. I will make sure you have the link for them. I believe the link is on my page, but if not, I'll double check it after I make this video and make sure the link is on my page so that you could just click on and get as many processes as you want. But in the meantime, let's talk about this. This is a story that started back in 2022 when I began level 8. Level 8 for the Global Information Network means the eighth level of the Success Mastery course. And that was divided into 4 parts. Each part was 4 full days, so 16 days total. And so we sat in a room and the information is private, so I can't really tell you what's going on. And if I did, it wouldn't make a lot of sense anyways if you haven't gone through the first 7 levels. So don't worry about that. Just know that it's a lot of personal development. It's a lot of inner work, and it changes a lot of things. A lot of things tend to manifest for you. Well, going into the first part of level 8, I had my family business that I had had for many years, and it was doing pretty well. I had moved it from Chicago to Kentucky. I had bought it out. Things were going well. I was making money. I was feeling good. Life was good. I'd been making good money ever since that time, when Kevin was living with me way back and things had been kind of rolling. And then I started level 8. And that was interesting. And what I noticed about that is each part of level 8, every time I would finish it, business would kind of go down. And the first time I didn't really think much of it because, business was always sort of a roller coaster anyways. And so I thought it was just one of those dips. But it became really clear after the second time. It's like, wow, this was a very sharp decline immediately when I took part 2. And then, I would work it up in part 3, and then part 3 it happened again. So between part 3 and part 4, I did 30 money processes. There's 30 available. I guess there'll be 3 available to certain people at a higher level at a later date. That's another story, but there's 30 available that you could purchase on your own and clear 30 different levels of blocks. Each one is a little more intense than the next. Well, I was the very first group who did this, which means I took all 30 in about 3 days. And when we were in the room, Kevin said and looked at us and said, "This is an experiment. We never did all 30 at once. I had this delivered to me over 10 years. So let's see what happens." Oh, thanks, Kevin. Nice to be a human experiment. But, I was up for it. Who knows? I figured only good things could come of it, right? Who knows? So I did that. We're in the room. There's probably 300 people in the room. And after doing 30, you're in a room for 3 days. You're thinking about money. You're clearing these blocks. And I felt good. I had a great week after that of business. I had business happening while I was actually in the room. I had one of the biggest sales, and I'm like, this is great. This is what life is going to be now. Now that I've cleared all my blocks, the money just to start flowing in. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be wonderful. And that kind of leveled off after a few months, and then I took part 4 of level 8, and business sort of went straight south. And I had this weird experience where in part 4 of level 8, where my business phone, while I was doing a process in there, completely drained out from the energy of what I was experiencing in another location. And I knew those were connected, but that's maybe a story for a different time. In any case, business kind of wasn't quite right. And a few months later, you know, maybe backtrack a little bit. About the time I took these 30 money processes, I had built up even though business was going okay, I was working on to try to get it back up, but I had had an increased amount of business debt from every time it kept going down. and I was falling a little further and a little further behind. So I had maybe $200,000 worth of business debt, which sounds bad. When you have regular business and cash flow is moving, that's not so terrible because you're going to be constantly paying it off, and that's okay. But if suddenly you have $200,000 and business goes down, then all you have is a lot of debt and no way to pay it off. And creditors are only patient for so long. Well, business never really came back after part four, and I was struggling. And finally, I hit a point where my creditors, a few months later, several of them all at once said, you just owe us too much. We can't give you any more until you've paid off your debt. We can't give you any more product until your debt is paid off. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, that logically makes sense, but I still need the product for my business. How do I get this product? And now I had to look into other avenues. Do I want to create more debt with other people? Do I want to find other ways? And so I looked, I figured it out, and I slowly paid off my debt. Well, by the time these creditors actually came to me, my debt was maybe down to about $140,000. So I've been working on paying it off. I've been making some progress, but it was too slow. It needed to go much quicker, and some of it now was getting older. Some of this debt now is old, and people are like, I want my money. I don't blame them. I want my money too. We all want our money, right? So fast forward a few months later, one of them comes completely due, and it's like, I need everything now. And I panicked, and I figured it out, and I got this guy paid off. And I had to finagle things and work it out, but I paid it off, and I was feeling good, and things were going in the right direction. My debt was going down slowly. The business never really fully came back. They didn't really have the creditors so that I can just keep getting product, and so I lost some customers on top of all that. So the business you were talking about 2023 and 2024, where we know what the economy was then. It was very rough. Uh, After a few years of bad, um, what is the proper term I could think of? Well, that'll come back to me. It was more difficult to get product for several years. I can't think of the term at the moment. That'll come back to me. But in any case, it caused there was a lot of challenges in business in that business climate for several years, and it would catch up to me. But I kept on working, and slowly it was going down. And I kept on working out. Well, fast forward to February, earlier this year, February 2025, and I had my debt down to maybe $50,000 or so, which was great progress from $200,000, but it was still a lot. And so I got a call Monday morning about 7 a.m. I get a call from one of my debtors. And, I could just see he'd been thinking about it and fuming all weekend long, and he couldn't wait. Like Monday morning at 7 a.m., I'm getting a call. And this guy is, where's my money? You promised we would sell this. I still got bags on the floor from you. Plus you owe us this, and you said it would all be paid off. You said we'd be making monthly payments, and you missed the last one. And where's my money? I was just like, oh, I'm a little slow, but I'm trying my best. I've always paid things off. Sometimes it gets slow, but I will pay it off. It's just slower than I would like it to happen. I apologize. And he wasn't having any of it. He just wanted his pound of flesh. He wanted to rip me a new one, and he's getting louder, and now I'm getting defensive, and it wasn't going well. So after about 5 minutes of, his screaming at me over the phone, I just like, look, I sell bags. Nothing is worth you yelling at me. Nothing is worth what you're doing right now. These are bags, okay? I'm sorry I owe you money. I'm going to pay it down, and if it takes longer, it's going to take longer, and that's just the way it is. But this isn't worth it, I don't even think I want to do this anymore. I've been working for 2 years to do nothing but pay off debt, and not even paying myself. I was paying myself maybe a third of what I was 2 years earlier. And it wasn't worth it anymore. I was just getting by at that point. I'm like, I'm just going to sell the business or close it and go do something else. I don't care what I'm doing, but nothing is worth sitting here and being yelled at because I owe you money. It's just nothing is worth that. So I'm just going to go do something else. It's just money. You don't yell at people over things like that. I mean, you shouldn't yell at people for anything really, but it was silly. And he got really quiet and he goes, "You would sell your business?" Yeah. What do I need all this headache for? I'm just working to pay off debt. I'm barely making it myself. I don't even like this. It's selling paper bags. It's not my passion. It's just a family business that sort of fell into my lap that I manifested years earlier. And it's been good to me financially, but now I'm not even sure it is anymore. So I'm just going to go do something else. I'm going to go do something that makes me happy. I'm not so young anymore. I'm going to go be happy. How much do you want for it? Like, really? And the rest of the phone call, the same phone call, we start negotiating for another 20 minutes on this phone call. Anyway, so that call ends, and I send him a proposals. I get a lawyer. He gets a lawyer. We send stuff back and forth. 3 months later, 3 months, yeah, May now, 2025, he's in my living room with his comptroller, and we're closing. We're signing the closing paperwork on my business. I sold him the business. By the time I sold him that business, my debt, including what the debt, I had sold all the bags that he had had on my floor for him. I had paid off most of his debt. I think I owed him like $700 at that time, down from, I don't know, 30,000 when 3 months earlier. And my total business debt was, I would say about maybe 20,000 at that point, down from 200,000. And so I sold the business. I paid off the remaining debt. I paid off my personal credit card. I paid off anything that I had. And I had no business. I had zero debt in my life. And I was free. It was like, yay, I'm free. And I had some money to kind of live on for a while and figure out my next steps, which I've been doing since and having fun. Now I could focus on my life. I could live my life. And then it just kind of occurred to me 18 months from the time of closing since I took those money processes. And for 18 months, I'm thinking, these money processes didn't work. Oh, look, I should be making all this money. You keep saying everyone makes money. They didn't work. They did work. In those 18 months, 200,000 debt was 90% paid off. And I sold my business and went from $200,000 in debt to more than 100 grand in the bank and no debt. And life was good. And time to figure it out. I mean, you pay taxes. I paid off some other debts and different things. I paid down all my bills. Everything was good. And it just kind of occurred to me, wow, those processes, they did work. It just, I couldn't see it. I didn't understand because I was so wrapped up in where I thought the money was supposed to come from. How come my business isn't getting better? But that was never my passion. That was never what I wanted to do, anyways. I wanted to do music, and I enjoy doing YouTube videos. I enjoy having the retreats. I love hosting people, being around people from my club. Those are the things that make me happy. That and tacos, of course, because who doesn't like tacos? But I I wasn't happy doing what I was doing. And I was making money, but doing those 30 processes, it doesn't just clear out blocks to making money. It completely changes the trajectory of your life. And so you're going to start making money doing what you love, or you're going to find out the hard way that what you're doing isn't lined up with where you actually are putting out, what kind of vibes you're putting out of who you want to be, what you actually want in life. And that was exactly the case. I was not congruent in what I was doing, where I thought money should come from, versus the vibes of what I was putting out of what I really wanted. And I'm still discovering some of that, but boy, I'm having a lot of fun, and I don't have the stress. I don't have people shouting at me, where's my money? Where's my money? Well, you got your money. You got your money. I got my money, and things are happy. No, I'm not a millionaire, and I don't always have money flowing in, but things have been good, and I've always been able to figure it out. And money's starting to flow in again from other sources now, and I'm really excited. And so this is my story. This is my money processes testimonial. This will probably never be put on the gin site because I'm not wearing a tuxedo, and that's fine. Because at the end of the day, I just want to be me and I just want to be happy. And isn't that kind of what it's all about? At least I believe it is. Thank you. Bless you. And I look forward to talking with you more and sharing more stories and more music. Thank you.